Reading clerk will please publish the next amendment.
Amendment number 10 is by Senator Hutto, previously carried over. Amendments repeal adds a new numbered section.
Senator from Orangeburg, Senator Hutto, what purpose do you ask?
Be recognized on the amendment.
You're recognized on the amendment. Senator from Orangeburg.
Thank you. This is Amendment 10, came after 9, surprisingly, but we're back in the number system here. I explained it briefly yesterday. Back in the 60s, when this legislature first passed abortion laws, they actually criminalized a woman's attempt to take medicine that might result in an abortion, and we have a legacy penalty in our code that actually criminalizes the woman herself. And I have heard various of you express during the course of this debate that that's not the intention, and that nothing in the new language criminalizes the act of a woman. But we have this language that's left over from the 60s and 70s that does create a criminal offense for any woman who procures a prescription or medicine and then administers it to herself, resulting in an abortion. That's a crime. And I don't think it's our intention, or at least I hope it's not our intention, to say to the women of South Carolina who are taking prescribed medication that we want to criminalize their acts. So this is an amendment that would repeal only, if you're looking at 444180, it's got 3 parts. I'm only repealing Part B. Senator Campson had an earlier version of his amendment that repealed the entire section. I'm not trying to do that. I'm only attempting to put us on record in saying that it is not the intention of this body to criminalize the acts of women who are taking medications or using any other device or instrument as a part of their health care. And so I would move adoption.
Pending questions, adoption. The amendment. Senator from Anderson, Senator Cash, what purpose do you ask?
Wish to be heard on the amendment.
You're recognized on the amendment. Senator from Anderson.
There's a lot of things in the bill I don't agree with. And I have just not spoken on most of these issues. I understand Majority Leader would like to be done with this bill today. And I've expressed my views on a lot of these issues in previous times, so I haven't felt the need to comment on a lot of these amendments. But I will say, before I even get into my argument about this amendment, that I'm not one of those who agrees that there should never, ever be a penalty for a woman who has an abortion. I believe we are all moral agents. We are all accountable for our actions. And so just on the basis of that alone, I would say, how can you have a law that criminalizes some action and then say, but if you break the law, there's no penalty? It's not even logical. But I'm not going to try to argue that within the context of the heartbeat bill language, because that's the point right now that I can't win. But I am going to point out several other arguments to you about this particular amendment, and I hope that you will listen to what I have to say and can consider it. First, I realize that people are going through the code and cleaning up various things that they either want to delete or things they want to change, modernize, perhaps. But I will just say that I believe this bill will stand a better chance of passing both the House and the Senate if we stick more closely to the mission at hand, which is fixing the heartbeat bill section of the code. You know, we don't know if we pass this bill what the House is going to do with it. Maybe they received the bill and they're willing to just concur with us and go along, and the bill is done with. You know, maybe they completely change it to something like the Human Life Protection Act, or maybe they take the bill and they just go through it carefully and they find some things they disagree with in the bill, and they want to have their say, so they change them and send it back. That happens all the time in the legislative process. I do feel confident about this. If this amendment passes, I feel absolutely confident that that change is something that the House would send right back to us and say, we're not going to go along with that. That whatever else they may agree to, that's not one that they're going to agree to. This amendment relates directly to an aspect of the abortion issue that is rapidly evolving, and that is drug-induced abortions, medication abortions. Recent statistics have shown a decline in surgical abortions and a rapid rise in drug-induced abortions. In 2018, 55% of all the abortions in this state were drug-induced abortions. 55% in 2018. In 2019, that became 61%. In 2020, that became 67%. And in 2021, of the total of 6,279 abortions recorded by DHEC in this state, 4,623, 73%, were done by medication. They were drug-induced abortions, 73%. In a period of 3 or 4 years, it rose from 55% of all abortions to 73% of abortions. So this leads me to the main point. If we delete this section of the code, it's going to incentivize do-it-yourself abortions at home without any medical supervision. Now, I'm not saying that's the intention of the amendment. I'm just saying that is going to be the practical effect of the amendment. If you look at the section of the code, 444180, there are 3 pieces to it, A, B, and C. And point number A prohibits any person from providing or supplying or prescribing or administering drugs or medicine that would cause an abortion. Okay, so in other words, the law would say the doctor, if we pass this bill, the doctor cannot prescribe the drug-inducing abortion medication. It's against the law for the doctor to do that. Walgreens can't fulfill it. It's against the law. That's what Section A says. And then Section B would come along and say, well, Section B would be gone. So the practical effect of that would be we would create the circumstance where a woman who is carrying a child that has a heartbeat and wants to end that pregnancy, if there is no penalty at all for self-induced abortions, she would simply go out and try to get the self-inducing abortion medication wherever she could find it. In other words, she can't get it from the doctor, the baby has a heartbeat. She can't get it from Walgreens, the baby has a heartbeat. They cannot prescribe it, they cannot sell it. So where's she going to get that? She's going to get it illegally. These are drugs that could be off-label, they could be tainted, they could perhaps even be deadly, not just for the baby, but for the woman. As I said, I think this is not necessarily the intention of this amendment, not in any way trying to make a comment upon that as to the author of the amendment. I'm simply saying that as in many cases with legislation, if we're not careful about what we do and we end up with what is unintended consequences that perhaps we didn't see coming when we did something. And I am convinced this amendment would have the unintended consequence of creating a market or an incentive for self-induced home abortions whereby there's no penalty for the woman to go out and try to find the drugs however she can, whoever's selling them illegally, and doing the abortion at home, because there's no penalty. If this amendment was adopted, there's no penalty for a woman for doing that. And I think self-induced abortions at home is not what we want to do. It's certainly not what I want to do under any circumstance. There's not even any medical supervision if that's happening. So, Mr. President, I'm not going to take questions. I'm going to move to table this amendment, but if someone else wants to speak, I would certainly extend that courtesy to them.
Senator from Richland, Senator Jackson, what purpose do you rise? So the senator from Anderson, I understand, withholds his amendment, his motion to table for the senator to be heard. Senator from Richland, Senator Jackson's
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Senate, I would have asked the senator from Anderson this question that is important. This is the first time I've taken to the well on this issue because this really got my attention, is that what would you want the penalty to be? And so, I mean, I'm hearing that there should be a penalty, there should be a punishment. And I think what the public would love to hear from all that would support your position is that what would you propose the penalty or the punishment to be for a person who feels like this is my only option, this is the only way I can do it? Would you 10 years in prison, 20 years in prison, life without parole? I mean, I think these are the kind of discussions that we ought to have. Look, we are going to pass some kind of bill. But what the senator from Orangeburg is offering is a humane way of really approaching this. We have said consistently, Senator from Orangeburg, that this bill is not targeted at the mother. We've said that. But if we don't support his amendment, then that was just rhetoric and not facts, because we will target the mother. And I don't see how any of you can leave here if you support this without having something in mind on what would that penalty be.
Senator
how much prison time should that mother get? Senator from
Orangeburg. Senator Hutto, what purpose do you rise, sir?
Seafood yield.
Senator yield for a question?
Yes.
Senator yields for a question.
Senator, did you know the answer is 2 years?
Right.
What I'm trying to repeal is a statute that would put a woman in jail for up to 2 years. And, I mean, can you envision somebody arriving at a woman's home and taking her off in handcuffs because she took a pill that was prescribed to her?
Yeah, and Senator, and you're right. And the reason I ask, because I've heard some say that it should be even harder than that. It should be a penalty that should be a lot harsher than even 2 years. But yeah, I mean, that's true. Are we willing to say that a person should go to jail, for 2 years if they take a chemically induced abortion pill? That is what we have to decide here in South Carolina. And listen, perhaps we all went to the inaugural address by the governor, in which he proudly proclaimed South Carolina as the best state to live in. People come here, come to South Carolina. But guys, this scares me. This is like Handmaid's Tales type stuff. I mean, this is the kind of things you see on Hulu, your series on, and you go, And as my wife convinced me to watch the entire series, Senator from Orangeburg, she said, because I think this could happen, Senator from Charleston, Senator Sin, in America. And I said, it can't. She says, I want you to watch it with me, because I think one day we could be living in an environment in this country, the greatest country of the year, greatest country of the world, in which we are dealing with this. And when I hear this, I mean, I think I want to text her right now and say, maybe you're right. When I hear this, I'm going, we may be closer to that than what you think. That's all I wanted to say as it relates to this bill. And I respect you, Senator from Anderson. I really do. I'm a big admirer of your faith. But this scares me on that. Thank you.
Senator
President, I renew my tabling motion.
Senator Madison renews his tabling motion. The motion is to table. Roll call has been requested to 5 members second the call. More than 5 second the call. I would ask that the clerk ring the bell. Would the reading clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Adams? Aye. Mr. Alexander? Not voting, Mr. Allen? Not voting, Mr. Bennett? No. Mr. Campson? No. Mr. Cash? Aye. Mr. Clymer? Aye. Mr. Corbin? Not voting, Mr. Cromer? No. Mr. Davis? Mr. Davis votes no. Mr. Fanning? No. Mr. Gambrill? Aye. Mr. Garrett? Aye. Mr. Goldfinch? Aye. Mr. Grooms? Aye. Mrs. Gustafson? Not voting. Mr. Harpootlian has leave. Mr. Hembry? No. Mr. Hutto? No. Mr. Jackson? No. Mr. Kevin Johnson? No. Mr. Michael Johnson? Aye. Mr. Kimbrell? Aye. Mr. Kempson has leave. Mr. Loftus? Not voting. Mr. Malloy? No. Mr. Martin? No. Mr. Massey? No. Mrs. Matthews? No. Mr. McElveen? No. Ms. McLeod? No. Mr. Peeler? Aye. Mr. Rankin? Not voting. Mr. Rickema? Aye. Mr. Rice? Aye. Mr. Sabb? No. Mr. Scott votes no. Mrs. Sin? No. Mr. Setzler has leave. Mrs. Shealy? No. Mr. Stevens? No. Mr. Talley? No. Mr. Turner? No. Mr. Verdon? No. Mr. Williams? No. Mr. Young? Mr. Young votes no.
Senator Allen votes no. Senator Peeler votes no. Alexander votes no. Senator Grooms votes no. Senator Michael Johnson votes no. Senator Clymer votes no. Senator Gufferson votes no. Senator Corbin votes no. Senator Rickenbach votes no. Have all members voted? Senator Kimbrell votes no. Have all members voted? Senator Rice votes no. Senator Loftus votes no. Senator Goldfinch votes no. Senator Gambrill votes no. Senator Davis votes no. Have all senators voted? The polls are closed and the clerk will tabulate. By a vote of 3 to 39, the Senate refuses to table the amendment. The pending question is the adoption of the amendment. Those in favor would say aye. Senator from Anderson, what purpose do you ask? Well, I'd already called I'd already done that, so I'm sorry. Those opposed would say no. The amendment is adopted.